Welcome to Invest. We talk about investing, finance, and professional development. As the current time of 10:18 a.m. on Eastern Time on Tuesday, March 21st. Hope you guys have a good week so far. It's been a wild week so far. With respect to Ethereum, 1,818.43, up 5% so far. On the overall crypto market, as you can see on the left side of the chart, we are relatively up in the sky, despite some altcoins are having some sort of a correction. Knowing the fact that with respect to the crypto market, it's been running up relatively hot due to the anti-correlation effects that we're experiencing, with respect to several collapses from the financial sector. As you saw from, previously on Silicon Valley Bank, which has obviously had a major collapse with huge amount of deposit flowing out. And subsequent to that, Signature Bank also has closed down, and that cultivated into Credit Suisse also was up for discussions that eventually was basically taken over by a hostile takeover by UBS, buying it at a relatively low discount price. Basically, as like some sort of you would call that a white knight, but I actually call that a dark knight, if you may, with respect to coming in, scooping it up when it's the right time, knowing the fact that the bank was basically on the verge of going to bankruptcy. So for the bank to like UBS to be logically buying and acquiring these new customer base at a relatively discounted level, it just makes perfect sense, right? And with respect to the latest news, we saw some, relatively, dramatic activity coming from First Republic Bank. As you saw yesterday, at one point it was down about 45% at one point, and then rebounded subsequent in aftermarket hours by 15%. As of today, we have seen that it has bounced from opening market of up 15% at $14, reaching now to approximately about 16.15 the last time we checked. And what's really driving the collective surge across the whole market on both the crypto and also with respect to the index front is that with respect to the news, you could take a look at it real quick. Is that Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has, she's currently speaking at the moment as we are discussing right now. Is that some of the key synopsis of what she's been talking about is mainly just to regurgitate on the topic of discussions around the financial sector. Are we at the verge of basically, have a global financial crisis the way that we had, or at least in the same seismic level that we had during the 0809 crisis? Or is the Fed's going to be, coming up with some proactive solutions onto stepping up to backstop more deposit if necessary to make sure that, these regional banks do not go belly flop, right? And it seems like based on the verbiage that we've been hearing so far, and again, the speech is still going on, it's leaning more towards the positive side of the spectrum, right? Which translates into confidence into market front, driving it to be going up from here. And then on the other side of the spectrum, across the news front, you could see that the news are relatively regurgitating. And with respect to FRB, which is the First Republic Bank stock, has been just very dramatic, right? And I think for our technical discussions today, in addition to the crypto, we can also talk about First Republic to see how it's going. Okay. So the news it is what it is, but tomorrow is also the FOMC meeting that we'll be hearing from Jerome himself. So it seems like we are having 2 days of this, macro catalyst. Today with the banking conference hosted by the Treasury Secretary yelling, but tomorrow is going to be the Fed's announcing on the interest rate hikes proposition going forward. Are we going to go with 25 basis point? Are we going to go with what basis point are we thinking about going to, right? And I think if we are going to see, just meeting expectations, going with 25 basis point, I just say hypothetically, we should ideally translate into some sell off on the crypto side, but some buying pressure on the equity side, which I will dive into the explanations on why. So let's just dive into technicals, okay? So with respect to recording time of 1022, we are surging right now 1816 of close to 5%. The daily right now is quite extended. You can see that with respect to the technical level with 64 out of 70 with the large separations on the MACD front. The next level of resistance is going to be 1850, which we are basically about $25 away. Do I suggest buying at these level right now? I think the technical is kind of doing what it's supposed to be doing. We were forming this mini downward wedge, translates into an upward surge of 1817 that we're seeing right now, also being supported by obviously the macro catalyst from Janet Yellen, right, on her I guess boost of confidence that the Feds will sustain the vitality of these regional banks, if you may, right? And on the weekly, you could see that it's also extended at 60 out of 70. Also, it is looking like, the downward wedge translates into an upward surge, but this is not, sustainable, right? We are in the mid of this cup and handle. But with respect to the level that we're in right now, it is relatively risk high, and also it's being driven by the anti-correlation effects from the banking stocks, right? Monthly, you could see that with respect to the leveling off, we are consolidating, looking like we're, basically flattening out on the monthly. But this is, again, monthly, right? Which is not the best depiction. So looking at the weekly and daily translates that in the short term, we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. But, in the longer term wise, months out, we should ideally see like a short correction and then reverse up as we are approaching this reversal on a macro perspective by Q2 to transitioning into Q3. Bitcoin is even more elongated, right? Monthly, very extended. With respect to being level down, I think the worst we have seen already. I don't foresee like any major dump in the meantime. On the weekly, we are seeing a large separation. The daily is even more extended, right? You could see that large separation. We are clearly forming an apex right now, but you could see that I've also drawn an apex to show that, as we get higher and higher and higher, the likelihood of actually crashing down to the next level, back down to 24,500, is very likely, knowing the fact that we're at the 72 out of 70 right now. On the index front, just take a look at the SPY. We're 396. We are forming a golden cross on a daily, which translates into a buying pressure because that's just a technical exercise performing in front of our eyes. The weekly right now is relatively fused together. You could see that with respect to the reverse head and shoulder, we have the bottom shoulder, and we're forming a secondary shoulder right now, consolidating on a sideways fashion, flattening out. On the monthly, we are looking like we are about to rebound. We should be rebounding, but much later down the road, right? And take a look at the FRB just to, for our own, respective sanity. And I have seen this before. Let's take a look at that together. FRB or FRC? First Republic Bank, right? FRC. I think it's FRC, if I'm not mistaken. So let's take a look at FRC, First Republic Bank, San Francisco. You could see that with respect to this big red candle, this was basically with respect to the stir that we saw on the Monday open. Basically, it was a huge dump because of fear-mongering going on with respect to the vitality of the bank going forward. But you take a look at this on a daily, is extremely oversold at the 16 out of 70. Weekly, also extremely oversold, large separation. 17.59 out of 70. Monthly is also very oversold at 24 out of 70. So is this a falling knife? I think the discussions that we can have is that you could see that we clearly broke below the previous level of support that we were basically when the stock opened back in 2011. And you can see this red candle is basically a bet on, is this bank going to survive going forward? And I think based on the, just look at this optically speaking, right? JP Morgan stepped up, Bank of America stepped up, and I think a collection of 10 banks have put in $30 billion into FRC so far. And also with respect to Janet Yellen, her stamp of approval, or just reinforcement on the public confidence, is that a lot of these regional banks are, they are protected by the Federal Reserve. That translates into the fact that, if you look at this on a high levels perspective, right, the technical is purely discounted, very discounted. But looking at the fundamental as well, despite the outflow of the deposits, right, knowing the fact that you do have these institutions supporting this bank from falling apart, I think it's ultimately, I think too much money and too many people has been involved already that it wouldn't really make much sense for First Republic to, let's say, collapse altogether for no reason, because who's gonna explain the $30 billion that was deposited into the bank to sustain it? Who's gonna explain 10 banks basically surrounding FRC to rescue it, right? So I think a lot of negative news on the media front, but I think it's more fear mongering than true representations of the fundamental of the business. So that translates into a good opportunity for us to actually buy into a stock that is frankly oversold, because of just a lack of understanding on a technical perspective. And also, I have been talking with the representative of FRC. I did have dinner with the representative, the heads of the tech venture arm of the bank. It seems like they are progressing on their initiative. They are optimistic, and seems like there are good support system going on internally. So I personally have good faith in this business going forward. So I'm not too worried about it. So I actually have made a small investment, just a 2,000 shares of FRC when it reached to a level that was around like the current level right now. So I'm not really up or down, but I think if you believe in the long-term fundamental of this potential, it is actually not a terrible idea, right? So I think all the optical factors that we've identified so far aligns with what we're expecting. So I feel good about it. But again, this is a little bit more of a risky side of the spectrum, but it's ultimately betting on both the technical and the fundamental aspects of this investment opportunity. Okay. So I think we have a marching order. Hopefully this is helpful in terms of giving you some color around how I'm thinking about the whole macro dynamics. But tomorrow's going to be a big day, and the subsequent day as well, as we digest what Jerome is going to say, like his report card, right? What's up with all the banks blowing up? Like now what, right? So hopefully this is helpful. Really appreciate you. Have a good day and take care. Bye.